for a more clearly written way. Anyhow, great show. I love the president, and it makes me almost patriotic. That's what not almost. Watching that show makes me love America more because it's an idea of a much better America. One that
what season are you in?
Two?
Okay.
Yeah,
before
I've seen it through like plenty of times. It's quite good. I like all the cast. Rob Lowe is like the speechwriter, and he's fucking fantastic.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So for people that don't know the show really well, there's a plot line where I think American astronauts get stranded in space, and the White House throws up their hands and says, "Oh man, I wish I could do something, but you know, it sucks. Dude's gonna die." So a top executive from the White House leaks that there is a secret space shuttle that if they wanted to, they could use to save this guy.
Yeah.
And now there becomes this public pressure to save this guy, and I think they do. And the question is, like, is that guy an enemy of the state? They needed that space shuttle.
He's a traitor. He does life in prison in my world. If I'm like Chief Justice or whatever, like executive officer, you are a traitor to your country. You just leaked the fact that we have a secret CIA space plane. Do you know why we have a secret CIA space plane? Do you think it's for taking little trips out into space for shits and giggles? No, it's for national defense. It's for fighting the fucking Ruskies off when our nation is on the line.
Indirectly,
if they know about it, they can make weapons against it, and now they know about it. They're looking at it right now. You did that. You do life in prison. I don't care about 3 fucking astronauts. I care about 300 million Americans and the world that is safeguarded by them. So fuck you. Do life in prison.
Okay. Yeah, I think both positions
leave them up there.
Well, yeah, they stay up there and they die. That's how that works.
Yeah, that's life in prison.
That's what they signed up.
That's life in space.
Life in space. That's
all those guys are fucking Air Force. I mean, maybe I don't know, maybe there's a school teacher up there too on that particular one.
Can you imagine a scarier, other than being out in the middle of the ocean, can't see land? Yeah, imagine being out in space and just knowing no one can get you. Even if you're on like a space station, you just look out, see the like.
I've always said that's one of my biggest nightmares. I don't know why you think that.
So lonely and horrifying.
It's so lonely and horrifying.
Yeah.
And
I think dying in the ocean is just an extended version of that. You dive really slowly, you dry out.
I agree.
You eventually make the bad decision to drink seawater.
Yeah.
And it's just a terrible, awful death.
But there's
space. At least you're kind of cool until then.
Rescue's possible on the ocean, and they're having those cases.
You're gonna look at if you die in space.
Eagle blood and turtle blood shit that make it hundreds of days. That's happened multiple times. So you've got a chance. Maybe in a shipping lane, you kind of float into one of those.
Yes.
But
you have enough tools to collect rainwater.
Yeah.
I want NASA to complain about all of the undoubted fucked up animal experiments they did with.
This is going to be a hilariously tiny payout for the amount of time I used to get it back here. However, in demand, no demand. Which one is it, boys?
With poor monkeys and cats and stuff in space.
They do complain. They talk about it. Didn't you just recently see that picture of the first monkey that they got back?
And it was.
He's holding.
Okay.
Yeah, he's holding a paper. It's like
he's holding a paper.
He's holding the newspaper about himself, and it says "Space Monkey comes home." And he's going, like they do, and he's holding the paper. Now they sent several dogs. And some other shit up there, and they were never planning on bringing them home.
It's like, how long can a chimp survive in a vacuum? Not long, doctor.
No, not a vacuum, not a vacuum. They had the air that was in the capsule, but they would either get cooked on reentry or just run out of air.
No, they were doing fun. They were like doing that train show where they stick the arms of the chimps outside into the vacuum space to see.
Oh, they don't do that. That's a good show, by the way.
I'm okay with these dogs and chimps getting cooked on reentry, so long as, like the Native Americans, they used every piece of the dog and chimp.
Every little bit.
You got to eat it all, use the bones for your tent, stuff like that.
I would be okay with it if it was cats.
That's why the Chinese
there's no way that
program out the ground.
I don't think that dogs teach us anything that killing cats couldn't. I'd kill 10,000 cats just to make a dog smile.
I'd kill.
Yeah, I'd do it for free.
What if the dog?
No smile required. Bring the cat.
I'd pay no more than
Wait.
Cats are so high on their high horse, you know, like they think that they're our equals at the very least. Like totally, they've got that schmarmy, smug kind of look to them. That your dog knows you're the fucking boss. Like he might goof around you with you a little bit, but he's so complimented every time you scritch him on the head. He's like, the Lord hath touched my crown. Like he's like, he tells the others, he touched me on the head, you see? He touches us all. I know, isn't he great? Like, that's how dogs are.
Most, you know.
Yeah. That cat will fucking eat your face off when you go down. We were talking about this on, in the Discord the other day. You fucking have a heart attack right now. I got a pain in my arm the other day, and I went, is this it? Is this the end? You go down, you go fucking down, cardiac arrest, like fucking pulmonary embolism, whatever. Bam, you're dead. Oh, that cat's going right for your lips. It's eating your luscious, sexy lips right off your face. Your dog will save some of its food because it knows you're sick, and it hopes that when you do wake up eventually, you'll eat some of its food and feel better. Like, that's what a dog would do. Like, your dog's saving some stuff for you.
The dog save food. I haven't seen that. Here's that. Like, you can give a cat a week's worth of food in its bowl, and it will take a week to eat it. If you put a week's worth of food in a dog bowl, that shit's gone.
It's vomit very soon.
Yes, yeah. And then it'll come back. Put me in, coach. I can eat the rest.
Yeah. Apparently, that's like if you just were to make like. If you're like, all right, dogs, welcome to the steak room, and you just let a bunch of dogs into a steak room, like many of them would eat themselves to death, like freaking out.
I'm trying to think of some of the
which I guess
the greatest hits of the things I've come down and found my dogs with. Because I come up here with this headset on, I play a game or whatever. I go downstairs and the dog's got an entire bottle of selenium. He has chewed open, and the little capsules are stuck to his little jowls all around the side. They're just because you can imagine you wet your finger, touch a capsule, it sticks to it, and he stinks. Like, I can't describe the smell of these pills. It's a supplement, but they have a really powerful odor, and now he stinks like it, and they're all in his fur because his fur was moist, so they're all melted into his fur. He's just dreadful. They'll knock glasses over. I'm bad to take like a juice glass or whatever. If it's like some ice and water or whatever, ice and soda on the side of the couch, like on the couch, like very precariously, because I'm a fucking adult. I have never knocked my own drink over. Never. That dog comes through and bats it with his tail on purpose. I swear to God, he's broken 4 glasses at least. I'm always stepping in. I've stepped in glass twice because of him. He dropped a big heavy toy from on top of the staircase, and it rolled down the stairs and got up enough momentum to like break some artwork that was on the wall. Like, it was like there was a bull's head, like a skull with the horns attached. The horns knocked off because this fucker dropped the toy from the top of the stairs and it rolled all the way to the bottom with such vigor that it knocked it off the fucking head off the wall. He's a menace.
Now you need a new bull head for your wall.
I just glued it back on.
Oh, that's okay. As long as you have the bull. That sounds very, very Warhammer, very intense. I like that.
Very Warhammer?
Very Warhammer.
I think you're looking for a segue that's not there.
No, it's going to happen because we're talking about it now.
Oh.
Like, we played last night, me and Kyle and Robot and Fish, God bless him, is doing his best. And the first couple games, 2v2, was Kyle and I versus those two. And after a couple of those of just absolute spankings, Robot, very kindly, not wanting to be like, anyone but Fish on my team, like, he was like, let's do random rolls. And so he
said let's mix the teams up.
Yeah, let's mix the teams up.
And I said the only way I will mix them up is if it's random. So there's still a chance I get to play with them.
And so he made this pinwheel, like, I guess where you can like hit it and it spins, and it was just the first 2 people are on a team. Fish and Kyle. And I'm like, all right, me and Robot taking on Fish and Kyle, and I think that was the one that was actually a reasonably close game, and Kyle must have told Fish in increasing levels of exasperation. He was like, Fish, you gotta take this guy on point 1 and move him off of, move that guy next to point 1, put him on point 1. On point 1, Taylor's taking it, on point, and then Kyle goes back to do his thing, comes back, he's like, Fish, I need this guy on point 1. Point 1, do you see him here? Do you see, he's near this guy of mine, and Fish is like, okay, I got it. And then, like, he looks back, and I'm just beating his guys to death. Minutes, full minutes. Like, of a soldier, of, like, a group of his soldiers standing there like this. As, like, because they haven't been told to attack, so my ogres are just eating them and beating them.
Please, sir, let us defend ourselves!
Yeah. And at one point, like, Kyle was really winning his side of the battle, and, like, you guys were winning. And unknown to you, I had knocked Fish back off the point because you were distracted with Robot, and about 3 real-time minutes passes, which is an enormous amount of time in this game, and Fish didn't say a word, and I was like, I'm not going to mention out loud to Robot that I took 1 back because I don't want Kyle to know. And Kyle looks back and he's like, Fish, did you just lose 1? And he's like, no, that was a while ago. And it's like, and he's
like to give you a little context into this. This is the third game that he's describing. This is the third game we played in a row where I have gotten Fish, and so I am coaching him up more and more exasperated. Like, I'm getting angry. I'm yelling.
Better. Yeah.
Lots of things, like dozens and dozens of things he can do better.
No, why? Like, he's not stupid, I don't think. Like, why is he so bad?
I mean, don't put me in a position where I have to say yes, he is. He's not good at games. He'll say a lot.
People struggle with our
I'm not saying he's stupid. He's just bad at things that take him.
He's a stats and stories kind of gamer.
He's a stats and stories kind of gamer.
He's not all nuts and bolts.
I want to be Kyle's teammate, and then he'll be like, wait, take 1. Soon.
Nah.
Get 1.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm more of a 4th quarter player.
I'm stocking up.
For 3 periods, there's not 4 quarters. Yeah,
hilarious.
So it's the third game. We've lost multiple games in a row, and they're not blowouts. Like, I'm getting him to, like, I'm coaching a much worse player up to almost getting these 2, and I'm enjoying it because I'm taking him to a secret room, and I'm building his armies for him, and I'm like, this is important. This key concept, this is how this works. I've built a machine for you. You do this and that, over and over, and I'm okay. And we get in there, and it's going well. What we do, the domination flags, 1, 2, 3, ABC, whatever you want to call it, are on this map. 2 of them are in a line. I can go 1 straight to 3 because 2's way off to the left. So that's my plan. We're going to their spawn. We're not playing in the middle of the map. So I'm like, you build this little army. You're not stopping at your first flag, Fish. That you don't care about that flag. You want their flag. You're going to their house. He's like, okay. And so he moves his. He's got a giant spider the size of a house, and he's got multiple guys on horses and pigs, and he's got green goblin men with big swords. And I've thrown in some of my black god of Nagaron, dark elf badasses with halberds, and I brought a dragon to fly over him. And this army is going to push their shit in while I like use my left hand to fight the other player, and it's working. It worked so long that I was like, we fucking did it. We fucking did it. And in that moment of celebration, I lost focus and we lost. That's literally what happened. I lost focus for 1 minute. I clicked maybe 2 buttons wrong and didn't look at what he was doing, and we lost in those 20 seconds. And when he was like, what can we do? And I'm like, what do you mean? It's over. It was over a minute and a half ago. That's how this shit works. This isn't one of those games where you can just be like, nope, you're all dead. It's like it's an army coming over the horizon that you mentioned. Yeah, I look at Taylor's army and suddenly it looks like the ride of the Rohirrim. Gandalf is coming down the fucking mountain
on his
with
monster
the sun behind him. and Fish's army is all like fleeing into the trees. The spider's dead. Like, you would think he'd have mentioned when the giant spider died. Anywho, we're going to play some more tonight. I'm going to coach that little bastard up.
He took Kyle very literally at one point when Kyle was like, every single unit you have on the one flag. And it was like too early for a last stand. And so I got to use my Firebelly Ogre Wizard, who just summons big firestorms. And Fish refused to move any of his soldiers out of the path of destruction. You know, like if Kyle would have seen a spell coming in, he would have instantly moved them a bit and then put them back on the point, you know, like you do. But no, Fish's goblins would not be swayed by the firestorms consuming them. And
that spell is actually called Firestorm. Yeah. It is a tornado made of fire that kind of hangs out for 35 to 55 seconds.
And all of Fish's soldiers stared at it and dared it to come towards them. And it did. And that was great. Because like every once in a while a spell goes off like that and you get to see the value meter go like it's very satisfying. That's one of the most fun parts of that game. It's like a really good spell going off.
Dude, I'm in such an autistic tism over there that I don't look at any of that stuff. I'm just click.
Do you guys
and I'm having to watch
in
him
the
too.
subreddit? Not the subreddit,
in the
Discord?
What was the question?
I asked if you live stream it.
Oh yeah. We'll have a whole crowd in there.
In there.
Like right after this, I'm going in there and they're waiting on me. Like we'll get a 2 or 3 of those guys together. Yeah.
Will you be playing 2 hours from now?
Yeah,
I
I'll be
would
playing
imagine
probably.
so, yeah.
I like how he answered that. Like, oh, I don't know. I am a real adult, so perhaps later in the evening, yes, he'll be playing all fucking night.
I will be playing all as long as Kyle's on.
Taylor's single until his autism goes away.
Yeah, Taylor's got that legal Missouri weed, and I can hear him over there smoking it up. And then 15, 20 minutes later, a question will come Taylor's way, and instead of his normal, bubbly, like quick-witted self, he's like, yeah, that's okay, all right, yeah.
It definitely makes me worse at RTS.
Good. Somebody needs to shove a caffeine capsule up Fish's asshole. It's real frustrating for your teammate to let you down in that game. Like I feel bad when I do poorly. But yeah, real fun game. You know what we need to do? We need to make friends with that Turin guy. Let's get him on as a guest and not talk about the silly game that like 50 people enjoy. I hear you loud and clear. But I think he's an interesting guy. I think maybe we get him on for an hour or two, talk about his life. I want to hear about his wife. I want to hear about his dog. I want to hear about so he's an RTS player, Woody, who earns his money on YouTube streaming, playing this RTS game and basically being the ambassador of the community to CA, the developer. He's the guy. Yeah. He's the voice of their streams and their tournaments. And he's built that since 2016 or so. But he has this, I don't know exactly, but he has an issue with his hands that required a surgery. He was essentially crippled for a long time where he couldn't play RTS. There's so much clicking and the community like sort of threw him on their back and just gave him content for him to sort of talk over. Yeah, it was really cool to see. I remember that was 4 or 5 years ago or something like that when he had the hand surgery. And I think I don't think they're 100%, but now he's able to sort of play as much as he would like to run it as a business.
He's very good at the game. Like
yeah, and he's a nice, well-spoken guy. I like that guy a ton.
Very knowledgeable. Like I appreciate that watching like an RTS commentator because they can like it's not like Call of Duty, it's more like he can be like, oh, that special regiment of renown, you may not know this, it has this ability, and that's going to mean
he's like a sports broadcaster. Yeah. You know how yep, that's Josh Elliott right out of Penn State. He's been here before, Mike, back in 03. And like they have all those little tidbits. Now they're reading cue cards, but he just knows that shit about every little unit on the field and
so it like informs you where he'll be like, dude, this player, he's running those ogres in, but that swordsman unit has 48 melee defense. That's not going to go well. And then he goes to some other part of the map, comes back, and exactly what he said was going to happen happens every time. That fight's not going to go well. Oh, that one is because this is coming in. You know what he should have done here is this, and like it's just easy to watch and be like, oh yeah, okay, I'm gelling, I'm picking it up. So he's
pop in there, Woody. We're going to be playing that. We're gonna be playing that game. We ought to pop in there a lot. We always stream the UFC fights. It's fun to watch with those guys in there. I don't stream, but Fish does, I think. I like watching with a group of people. I think that's my preferred way to watch UFC. I usually just watch by myself or with a girlfriend or something like that. But I like watching with them and hearing what other people are thinking while we're watching it because it's I don't know, it's a much better environment. I like
Sounds like fun. Did you guys watch that video I sent you like 3 weeks ago of Sailing La Vagabond?
No.
I have not seen anything from them in a while.
Taylor, you'd like it. Riley beats up 6 monkeys simultaneously.
Really? Did they have it coming?
Yes. Yeah,
Oh,
they were trying to murder his son. So he like got in between the monkeys and his child and just like swatted them all away. And then he had like it was either him or somebody with him had a backpack and like with wallet and keys and shit like that. And the monkeys were trying to take that. By the way, no food in this backpack, but they're trying to take their wallet and keys and stuff, things they really needed. So Riley had to wade into. I don't think there might have been 20 monkeys, but not all 20 like simultaneously attack. But he's literally like giving right hooks to the jaw of monkeys while he's like battling in there, grabbing keys and shit like that.
How big are the monkeys?
Yeah.
Like I don't know.
Oh,
pretty fun.
They're not like those baboon face things that we saw scalp that person. Are they? Do they have the teeth?
They did have like scary looking teeth, and I don't know my monkeys that well. I can tell you they weren't chimps or gorillas or anything. But
yeah, I don't know my monkeys.
I feel like though sometimes when we talk about wild animals, I'm always like, dude, I could beat up any 13-pound animal in the world, and you guys are like, no, you don't understand monkey strength. He'll scalp you, and I'm like, I feel like I could bam a 13-pound monkey. I don't understand how I lose to this thing. And yeah, there you go. Look at him. He's probably just fucking punched out one of those monkeys.
Look at him. They're standing up to him. That's art. What I like about
That's
this.
cool.
Unlike a lot of animal attacks, these animals are all engaged and like, yeah, bring it, big monkey. There's like 8 of us. Look at the little ones in the back watching on the rocks. They're hoping that the big ones win this fight and they get the genitals.
Dad, no, he's bigger than
I got
you.
rabies. Look at this.
That would be the fear of
because
fighting monkey. Being bit.
I would throw my child into the water.
His wife was in the water. Like she heard the screaming and she comes like, oh, it's his thumbnail. And she was like swimming back as fast as she could because she heard the commotion. But there was like an equally hot woman on the beach who was like his wife's friend or something like that.
Even bigger nipples.
Fuck yeah. Man, that's a fun life experience looking back, I'm sure. Like you got
too fun. I see what you're saying. Say the words, Taylor.
I won't say it. I won't.
Type 2, type 2, type 2.
Yeah, that like with those size monkeys, like you wouldn't be scared they'd kill you, but like if a feral little monkey bites you, like you're immediately like hospital now. That guaranteed that thing has a litany of dangerous stuff. Like if this is one of those things that isn't taken care of like today, I'm gonna have
probably died. Untreated. I bet a monkey bite you die. Like
I bet you're right. Yeah.
If those fangs go, enter too deep, you get an infection where you fucking die. Like
I wouldn't doubt it. I shared that same fear about small sharks. You know, people when I was a surfer, people would be like, "Dude, that shark's 4 foot long. Its mouth is only large enough to bite your forearm and leave a bunch of puncture holes, but it can't remove your forearm." Yeah. And I was like, even that injury you're describing sounds unacceptable.
Yeah.
I want all of my fingers and toes at the end of this session.
It'd be a cool scar. It'd be a cool scar. Like I don't want it either. But a little shark bite, like on your like delt. I'm getting that tattoo. I'm gonna lie and say it is a fucking shark. I'm gonna get scarification.
Drunk on a dock. Do it. Just do it.
But I'm gonna make it look like a fucking great white bit me across my whole torso. I'm like, yeah.
I saw it was a male porn star.
You go too far and like deform yourself.
He thought he had me. I had him.
We're talking about scars. This male porn star had a scar on his chest and like sideways on his belly button, on his stomach, I guess, and maybe here. Yeah, he had. It looked like he survived an autopsy. On this guy, and it wasn't
poor guy.
Yeah. And no, you're saying poor guy. No, this was clearly a scar he had done for aesthetic.
Gross.
Yeah, this is like a kind of tattoo. And I found the porn on a Reddit thing, and all the women thought it was fucking awesome. They were like, "This is my favorite guy."
Well, the ones who would be commenting on that video certainly would only be the people who are into it because
and then remove the 90%.
Those 7 people are spokesmen for all women across the world.
If you have any woman with a Pornhub account, bing, now you're on. Oh, look at that little. Well, we went from 4 billion people down to just 30,000 right away. Women on Pornhub, shit. Right? I don't think this is going to be indicative of normal humanity at all, but let's go 3 more layers deep.
Unless you have a more valid study, I'm going with mine.
I don't have any.
And now we are truly staring into the abyss.
Now only women who comment. Now only women who comment on scarification fuckers. Now only women who comment on scarification fuckers who are of the opinion that it's cool. There's 3 gals out there, and they all have that same tattoo.
Dude,
and one of them is that guy's mom.
Yeah.
I got banned from a subreddit.
Bullied out for being too mild.
There is a subreddit where people post naked photos of themselves and like ask you for feedback, and everyone's like, "You're beautiful, you're beautiful, you're beautiful, you look great. Oh my god." I wrote out 4 paragraphs on how to lose weight, like get chronometer, get chronometer, start weighing your food. And I taught her about macros, shit like that. Turns out that gets you banned, but she needed it.
Dude, Fat Hate Woody is my favorite version of Woody. Like, it's a funny thing that you notice, like people who there's a big group of people who have like been fit and active their whole life that just have revulsion for fat people in a way that like isn't put forth enough in modern day. Like there's too much acceptance of it. Like when the reality is like so many people are like who are actually fit are like, yeah, fuck fatties. I don't like. Remember Fat People Hate on Reddit in like 2013? It was the funniest forum out there, and they had to get rid of it because of it was too funny.
This woman was like 220. Like she was heavy for a woman. And I wrote something like, you know, you would be super hot in just like 7 months if you follow these steps. And she wrote back and she's like, thanks for saying this. I didn't really ask for this advice. And this part here, you know, you'll be super hot in 7 or 8 months, implies I'm not super hot now. And that hurt my feelings. I'm writing this to you with a tear in my eye. And it's like a fucking delusional tear because you're at 220 fucking pounds as a girl. Yeah. Like
I matched. There's a little bead of Crisco coming down your cheek.
It's been shortening. I matched up with this black chick one time, and I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" or whatever, like my opening line. I don't do fucking corny pickup lines. I say hello generally or something like that, or comment on them in some way. Anywho, her response was, "First thing, I'm not into white guys, just my preference." I'm like, okay, and then, but she's like, "How do I get into shape? Because you're looking pretty good." And I'm like, I'm literally on the elliptical. It's 2:30 in the morning, and I'm like, this is better than a girl who wants to fuck me. I go like, I turn the voice thing on, and I start like, well, first things first.
First things first, fat ass.
No, she was like, okay, she wasn't like out of sorts or anything. But you know, everybody could be better, I guess, was what she was going for. But no, I wrote her so many paragraphs, and we had like a nice, friendly, good luck, and then unmatched. It was one of the few. I don't know. Dating apps can be weird. Like women can be weird. I always see those people on like the Reddit where they're just being so toxic and awful. Now I think what a big part of that is dudes are just baiting women into having a height preference. As someone who's over 6 feet, I guess I shouldn't even like have an opinion about that. Just like I'm not supposed to have an opinion about murdering babies, but
we do.
So here goes.
Here we are.
I don't mind women having a height preference, and I don't mind women having a racial preference. Like there's been plenty of black women. I'll see in their profile, no whites. I'm like, loud and clear.
Anytime.
You don't have to be around you either if that's what you think.
No, I have no problem with that. What she means is I don't suck white dick. She's like, oh, you want to go to a party or a function with me? Sure, I'll tolerate you. You want to ride in a car together? I just want to suck your dick. That's all she's saying. It's like, yeah, I'm cool with that. Like, just let me know right up front.
That's a shitty way to be. Can you imagine if you saw someone with like no blacks like that? That has a like. No, of course you couldn't. Go to jail.
No, I've seen that on ladies' profiles.
I do see what Taylor's saying.
They'll say Caucasian persuasion, not down with the brown. You rhyme that shit, nobody cares about.
See, rhyming makes it fine there, but saying, you know,
I do understand how it's not that socially acceptable to say no black people, but I don't have a problem with anyone just having a preference.
Yeah, of course not. Everyone does.
Yeah.
I see plenty of like, they'll be like looking for a fucking poppy to raise my babies. Like must be 6'1" and Mexican. It's like, who are you looking for Antonio Banderas? Because he's 5'9".
I go through every race and say no this, no that, no that until there's everyone's excluded. I'm into skinny Samoans, and it's like, oh,
when you said you were on a subreddit where they rated people, I thought you were going to say rate my cock. You go over on rate my cock.
Yeah, you're moderator.
There's probably a subreddit for that.
I'm the administrator there.
I am the grader. Yeah, call me the wizard, the cock wizard. Yeah, it's like someone's like exasperated, like wife coming in the room, like, honey, we're gonna watch a movie with the kids. I'm swamped. Like,
we got a Discord called the Cockpit. We're just in there putting our heads together, trying to figure out who's got the best schlong. No,
I think it's time for Warhammer.
Oh, is it?
It is.
Time for
another penis subreddit. I've talked to you guys about it before, but it's called Cos Penis. COS.
We have laughed at that one on the show.
Man, they dress those penises up in little outfits, and it's so funny. Like, I'm gonna tell you, if I had like a very small penis, like an unfortunately small penis, maybe like a micro penis is like you can't get anything done with that. But if you just had like one that everyone would agree, oh damn, that's too small. But maybe if you dress that thing up in your dick pics, I feel like you could like sway a lady. Be like, hey, first of all, it's small. It's very, very. You do the Howard Stern show. You be like, oh, it's a micro penis. So then when they see 3 inches, they're like, I thought it was gonna be smaller. But you dress that thing up like Snow White and the 7 Dwarves, and you can have it all. You make the 7 Dwarves like they're attached, and then the penis is the one in the middle, and you're like looking for a Snow White. Looking for a Snow White.
That's a good idea. That will win you. Yep. Kyle, doling out advice.
You're gonna need those. What do you call those little things you bend? The pipe cleaners. Those little pipe cleaners you do arts and crafts with. Yeah. Right under the what do you call it? The
all the frenulum. Yep. So you heard it here first. All the little dick guys, head on over to Michael's and get yourself some arts and crafts.
Paper mache, some pipe cleaners, and one of those little hats like Robin Hood had, but thimble size.
Hobby Lobby's got you covered. All right. PKN 452.
This footage captures Kenya Monye as she stumbles her way into a hotel near the club she had been at with friends shortly before. But just hours after this footage was captured, Kenya would be dead. And though her death alone would take months to uncover, it would take police even longer to piece together all of the horrific details of that evening. Before we start, we would like to send our sincere condolences to the loved ones of Kenya Monye, who fell victim to the abominable acts described in this case. Kenya Monye, a 19-year-old woman originally from Honduras. Kenya immigrated to the United States at 12 years old to join her mother, who had left Honduras, to build a better life and create more opportunities in America. Kenya's mother, Maria, had married a man named Tony, and when Kenya arrived, she immediately embraced Tony as a member of the family and began to refer to him as Dad. And Tony was a kind and loving man who quickly became the father figure that Kenya had never had. When Kenya arrived in America, she spoke very little English, but she was smart and an outgoing girl, which allowed Kenya to pick up the language quickly, and she became known as someone who could make friends easily due to her kind, warm, and caring nature. As time went on, Kenya grew into a fun-loving teenager who enjoyed a very active social life, but was similarly comfortable at home, surrounded by her family. The family lived in Aurora, Colorado, which is located just east of Denver. Despite Aurora's relatively small population of just 380,000 residents, it is known as the gateway to the Rockies, given its location at the foot of the Front Range. After graduating high school, Kenya began studying broadcasting at a local college, where she quickly excelled. She had a natural talent for public speaking and a confident personality that made her a natural fit for a broadcasting role.
Impact or helix? Or climb? I already have a Klein. Okay, impact 1.
Soon after Kenya started college, she moved out of the family home to live with her boyfriend, Lewis. Kenya was generally responsible and well-behaved, but she did enjoy time out partying with her friends. She wasn't old enough to drink or go clubbing, so Kenya acquired a fake ID, so she could enjoy the nights out dancing with her friends and going to clubs which were located close to her apartment. On the 31st of March 2011, Kenya made plans to meet some friends at the 24K Lounge in downtown Denver. They reserved a table and ordered their favorite cocktails and shots. As Kenya was small of stature, being only 4 foot 11 inches and 100 pounds, it didn't take long for the alcohol to have a great effect on her, making her stumble as she walked and attempted to dance. In the early hours of the next morning, after a few hours of drinking and dancing, Kenya told her friends she was going to the restroom. She left her purse and her phone on the table and asked her friends to look after them until she returned. But Kenya never returned to her friends in the club. After she left to go to the restroom, some of the bouncers of the club had seen her stumbling as she walked due to her intoxicated state. And because of this, Kenya was forcibly removed from the club. Without her purse and cell phone, she just stood outside on the curb with no way to contact her friends or to retrieve her belongings. Back inside the club, Kenya's friends began to realize that she hadn't come back from the bathroom. The girls in the group looked inside the bathroom and around the club, but they found no sign of her. Instead of searching further, her friends figured that she must have left with someone she knew, or someone she had met. So they figured they would just keep her belongings safe and would get them back to her the next day. They didn't realize that among the belongings that Kenya had left behind were all of her personal belongings, including the keys to her home. But this was not her usual group of friends. Kenya had always had an arrangement with her best friends that no one would leave a club without each other, and they would always text each other when they got home to make sure that they were all safe. Kenya's close friends later recalled that it was unlike her not to tell them where she was going. But these more recent friends didn't have such an arrangement, so the group didn't make any further attempts to find Kenya before they left the club that night. The next morning on Friday, April the 1st, 2011, Kenya's boyfriend Lewis woke up to an empty bed. He knew Kenya was out with friends the night before, but it was highly unusual for her not to return home, especially without letting him know that she would be staying with a friend overnight. Kenya was a loving girlfriend, and not showing up or contacting him was very unlike her. Nonetheless, when Lewis checked his phone, there were no messages, Snapchats, or missed calls from Kenya, and Lewis knew immediately that something was not right. He called Kenya's sister Kim. Lewis knew how close the sisters were, and when something was wrong, Kenya would either go to Kim or himself. But he found that Kim hadn't heard from Kenya since the day before, and after hearing that she hadn't come home, she was worried too. As soon as Kim ended the call with Lewis, she called their parents to let them know that Kenya hadn't come home the night before. Kenya's parents both left work as soon as Kim told them that Kenya was missing. Together, they began pulling up phone numbers and Facebook profiles. They made contact with everyone they could think of that might know where Kenya was. This was when they discovered that Kenya had been out partying with another group of newer acquaintances, not the usual close friends that she partied with. Her friends told the parents, Maria and Tony, that Kenya had bailed on their plans the night before, saying that she had other plans, so they weren't sure where she was or what had happened. Not one of them had seen Kenya the night before. Eventually, the family was able to obtain the names and details of the people she had been at the club with that night, and that afternoon, 2 of the people in Kenya's group came to Tony and Maria's home to help figure out what was going on and to see if they could help. By this point, Tony and Maria were distraught. It had been almost 24 hours since Lewis had seen Kenya before she headed out with her group of friends, and there was still no word from her. Her parents asked question after question of the 2 friends. The friends revealed to Tony and Maria that she had been using a fake ID for a few months now, which kind of came as a shock to her parents. But this is not what they were worried about at this point. All they cared about was figuring out where Kenya was and ensuring that she was safe. But the information Tony and Maria got from the 2 friends made them uncomfortable. They handed over Kenya's phone, purse, and the keys that they had been left with, and told the parents that when she had left the belongings at the table and gone to the bathroom around midnight the night before, that was the last time they had seen her. When they heard this, Kenya's parents were even more distraught. It was so unlike Kenya to go anywhere without her phone, and now that they had her phone in their possession, this possible way to find her had been eliminated. But Tony and Maria weren't giving up. Tony spent hours going through Kenya's messages in hopes that it would reveal some clue as to her whereabouts. But aside from the hundreds of texts and calls from her boyfriend Lewis, her sister Kim, and her friends trying to make contact with her, there was no recent activity on the phone that would give them any clue to help find her. That was until Tony was scrolling through her phone and found a single text message which read, "Hey, this is Travis, the guy who gave you a ride last night, creepy white van. Did you get home okay?" Tony read this message almost as soon as it arrived. The number was not saved in Kenya's phone, but the words ignited a spark of hope. Tony understood that this person might have information about Kenya's whereabouts. He immediately called the number, but there was no answer. So he rang again and again and again. Still no answer. Frustrated and sick with worry, Tony and Maria agreed it was time to get the police involved and to file a missing persons report. But when they contacted the local police station, they were told they would have to wait 72 hours before a report could be filed. The officer on the phone sounded unsympathetic, and he told Maria and Tony that they shouldn't worry so much as Kenya was likely hungover somewhere and would show up soon. Tony and Maria didn't know what else to do, so they printed hundreds of missing persons flyers and handed them out anywhere they could think that Kenya may have visited. The following morning, Tony finally heard Kenya's phone ring. It was the same number that had sent the strange text the day before and who Tony had been attempting to contact. The man on the other end of the phone identified himself as Travis Forbes. He told Tony the story about how he had come to have Kenya's phone number. Travis recalled he had been walking past the 24K club around 2 a.m. the morning before. As he approached the front entrance, he saw Kenya talking to a homeless man. He could tell that Kenya was intoxicated, and despite the cold air, she was only wearing a dress. Travis told Tony that he asked if she needed help, and she said yes. Kenya told Travis that she needed to get to her car, which was parked in another club. Travis drove her to the club, but when Kenya couldn't find her car, he offered to drive her home instead. Kenya told him the address of the apartment she shared with Lewis, and Travis told Kenya that the bakery he rented was close by to her apartment, so he was familiar with the area. During the drive, Kenya had told Travis that she wanted to stop for cigarettes. They pulled up outside of a gas station, and that's when Kenya realized it was closed. But she saw an Asian man standing on the curb smoking, so she got out of the van and began to talk to the man. Travis told Tony that the man's name was Dan, and Kenya and Dan had been speaking to each other in Spanish. Dan handed Kenya a cigarette, and then they walked away together, leaving Travis alone with his van. Travis told Tony that was the last time he had seen Kenya. He sent the text the next day to make sure she had made it home safely. Tony found the story difficult to believe. First, it didn't make sense that Kenya wanted to get to her car when she didn't have the keys that were still in her purse at the club. And why would she want to stop for cigarettes with no money, as her cards and cash were also in her purse? On top of all that, Tony knew his daughter wasn't the type to get in a van with a stranger. The story just didn't line up with the responsible and careful woman that Kenya always was. So after ending the call with Travis, Tony called the police again, and he retold Travis's story. He begged them to be able to file a missing persons report, telling police that he had reason to strongly believe that Kenya was in trouble. But once again, his request was denied. Police claimed that Kenya still had not been missing long enough to warrant an investigation. Tony was extremely frustrated, and all he had to go on was Travis's strange story. So he called Travis again, asking him to recount the story. Travis suggested that Tony come meet him at the gas station where he last saw Kenya. Tony jumped at the chance to meet Travis, believing he might be coming face to face with the person responsible for his daughter's disappearance. So he agreed to meet Travis at the gas station, but he brought along his 9mm handgun and told his wife Maria where he was going. Maria was worried for Tony's safety and begged him not to go. She thought not only could the stranger be a psycho, but the whole situation was emotionally charged, and she was worried that Tony might do something that he would later regret. She even tried to block the exit of their home as he left, but Tony pressed past her, determined to find his daughter. As soon as he left the driveway, Maria called the police again. She told them the situation and that Tony had taken a gun to meet with Travis. Even though the gun was legal in the state, she was worried that something bad might happen. Police agreed to go to the gas station so they would be close by if anything got out of hand. As Tony arrived at the gas station, a police officer was already there, and so were Travis and a friend he had brought with him. Tony looked Travis up and down and immediately felt some relief. Travis was a well-presented guy in his early 30s. He was fit, with blonde hair and blue eyes. He hardly looked like the criminal Tony had been imagining in his mind. When Travis retold the story of the night before, he appeared genuinely concerned for Kenya's well-being. The details of the story were consistent with what he had told Tony over the phone, and had pointed out spots where he had parked his van and where Kenya had walked off with Dan. But despite the consistency and Travis's clean-cut appearance, Tony still had a bad feeling about the story, and so did the officer who had been listening. The officer asked Tony to step aside while he asked Travis a few extra questions, so Tony complied with the request and walked over to Travis's white van. But when Tony was within a few feet of the van, he was hit with a strong chemical smell of bleach. His stomach dropped when Travis was done speaking with the officer. Tony quietly pointed out the smell from the van. The officer walked towards the van and was met with the same strong odor. So the officer asked Travis if he could take a look inside the van, and Travis willingly agreed and opened the doors. The storage area was spotless and lined with brand new carpet. In contrast, the front seat of the van was completely covered in garbage and food wrappers. This painted a pretty suspicious picture, and it clearly looked like great care had been taken to clean the back of the van, but this still wasn't enough for officers to question him further. Instead, he took a written statement from Travis and let him go. Before Travis left the gas station, he walked over to Tony to shake his hand and to tell him that he hoped his daughter was found safe. And then Travis burst into tears. His shoulders slumped with huge, uncontrollable sobs, which seemed to Tony to be totally out of place in the situation. He apologized, saying that he wished he had followed through on what he had started, and just took Kenya home. And then he shook Tony's hand, got back into his van, and drove away from the gas station. Finally, after precisely 72 hours of being missing, Kenya's family were allowed to file a missing persons report. As the investigation began, Kenya's disappearance broke loose on both national and local news, and was even reported in her birth country of Honduras. The family made appearances across news stations begging for the public to come forward with any information that might lead them to Kenya.
I just worry every single minute because I don't know what's out there, what happened to her.
She was a high intelligence. She didn't make the right decisions all the time, but what teenager does? Something made her leave that bar, not on her own will. I don't know if it was the date rape drugs, someone slipped or something. We don't know any of those questions.
Police say witnesses claim they spotted the teen at a gas station in a different part of Denver around 3 a.m. Friday. So far, investigators have been unable to find her.
The story led to CCTV footage of Kenya at a local hotel being released. She can be seen in the foyer with another man. Kenya is clearly intoxicated and can be seen stumbling through the lobby. Travis Ford's name was associated with the investigation from the beginning, given the story he had told Tony and the police, and he was the last known person to see Kenya. At the time of Kenya's disappearance, Travis was the maker of a brand of gluten-free granola bars. His kitchen was a small rented space located in the rear of another local bakery. On April 5th, 2011, the owner of the bakery where Travis rented space came forward to police with CCTV footage taken on the night of April the 1st, the same night Kenya had gone missing. A woman named Monica Poole was the owner of Debbie's Bakery and was upset to learn that her CCTV system had malfunctioned when she checked on it on April the 2nd. She rewound the footage to see if she could understand what happened, and the last footage that had been recorded was of Travis. As a local, she was already aware of Kenya's disappearance, which prompted her to come forward. The CCTV footage shows Travis in the back of the bakery wearing long latex gloves, the kind used for cleaning. He can be seen rolling a cart, which is holding a large white cooler that has been duct taped shut, into the bakery's freezer. He walks out of the back of the bakery carrying a bottle of bleach. He then returns inside and switches off the CCTV cameras. On April the 6th, police would bring Travis into the station for questioning. While in custody, he tells the same story about his interaction with Kenya. He also tells police that he went to his girlfriend's house after watching Kenya leave the gas station with the homeless man named Dan. This was around 3:30 a.m., and that he left her house for work at 8:30 a.m. on the 1st of April. When police would question Travis's girlfriend, she would confirm his story. But police would soon take a closer look at Travis's story and discover some concerning inconsistencies. Reviews of Travis's phone records showed his phone had never been near his girlfriend's home the night Kenya disappeared. And Monica had already told police that she wasn't expecting Travis at the bakery on the 1st of April, which is why she was surprised to see him on the CCTV footage. Interviews with the neighbors of the bakery revealed even more disturbing clues. One neighbor had seen Travis cleaning a large white cooler in the back of his van on the afternoon of April the 2nd, while another had seen a 55-gallon barrel being burned outside of the back of the bakery on the evening of April the 1st. When Monica confronted Travis about the burning barrel, he told him that he had burned some marijuana, which had gone moldy in his cooler. He justified turning off the cameras because he didn't want to change clothes with the cameras on. When Monica gave the statement to the police, she added that Travis had scratches on his arms that day, which he claimed came from a homeless person attacking him. With the evidence mounting, the link between Kenya's disappearance and Travis's suspicious movements around that time were getting stronger. But Travis was still playing the Good Samaritan. He appeared in interviews on local news stations. In those interviews, he is highly emotional and sobs and apologizes for not getting Kenya safely home that night.
I'm sorry that I was indifferent, that I didn't think anything. I didn't think anything. I didn't think she was gonna disappear. I could have walked with them. I could have been more. I could have been like, no, I'm gonna take you home, and I could have intervened more, and not just said okay and gone home.
Despite being on the top of the suspect list, there was no sign of Kenya and no indication as to whether she was alive or dead. And with no conclusive evidence, Travis was allowed to remain a free man. But even so, Travis could sense the investigation into Kenya's disappearance was beginning to implicate him strongly. So he decided to disappear. Travis stole a friend's car and drove from Colorado to Texas in an attempt to get away from the spotlight. His escape was short-lived, however, when on the 4th of May, Travis was pulled over and arrested in Austin on suspicion of car theft. By this point, the investigators in Kenya's disappearance had uncovered more evidence against Travis, so they needed to interview him again in hopes that he would slip up and provide more information about Kenya. But his story remained consistent. Police were left with no new information except for a DNA sample they were able to obtain with a warrant. At the end of June, Travis was extradited back to Colorado to face the charges of car theft, but he was released when the friend dropped the case against him. Police had begun to believe they were dealing with a serial offender and decided to have Travis put under 24-hour surveillance. They were hoping that he would lead them to Kenya or at least make some mistake that they could hold him on while they continued their investigation. But Travis was well behaved while investigators tailed him. He would go to bars and nightclubs, but other than getting drunk and yelling at a patron of a local bar, he didn't really do anything that would warrant officers arresting him. After 3 nights of surveillance, it was stopped, and Travis was free to do as he pleased once again. This was a fateful decision that continues to haunt investigators to this day. this day. It was the 4th of July, and locals in downtown Fort Collins, nearby to Aurora, were enjoying the Independence Day fireworks display. Amongst the crowds was Lydia Tillman, a 30-year-old sommelier who had recently moved to the area after leaving New York. In the late evening, when the fireworks had ended, she walked back to her apartment alone. As she pressed the key into her front door, she was pushed from behind by a man who she had not realized was following her home. Lydia fell onto the floor when she was pushed by the man, who immediately jumped on her and began to sexually assault her. And as he did so, the man would begin punching her in the head with blows that would break her jaw and cause severe head trauma. Lydia fought back as best she could. She kicked and scratched her attacker as she fought for her life, but his size made her frantic attempts to free herself futile, and after a few horrifying minutes, she would fall unconscious. Before the man escaped the building, he doused Lydia's broken body with bleach and set the apartment on fire. Police and fire services arrived within minutes and watched as the smoke billowed from the windows around Lydia's apartment. The flames began to climb up the side of the building as they unrolled the hoses and extended the ladders. To the astonishment of the emergency workers and people who were gathered below, a window on the second floor of the burning building opened, and a woman, lacking clothing, was seen as she threw herself out of the window directly onto the pavement below. The woman was Lydia Tillman. She had barely survived the horrific attack and knew that she would likely perish in the flames, so she had thrown herself out of a severe hit into her front door. She was pushed from behind by a man lead them to Kenya, or at least make some mistake that they could hold him on while they continued their investigation. But Travis was well behaved while investigators tailed him. He would go to bars and nightclubs, but other than getting drunk and yelling at a patron of a local bar, he didn't really do anything that would warrant officers arresting him. After 3 nights of surveillance, it was stopped, and Travis was free to do as he pleased once again. This was a fateful decision that continues to haunt investigators to this day. It was the 4th of July, and locals in downtown Fort Collins, nearby to Aurora, were enjoying the Independence Day fireworks display. Amongst the crowds was Lydia Tillman, a 30-year-old sommelier who had recently moved to the area after leaving New York. In the late evening, when the fireworks had ended, she walked back to her apartment alone. As she pressed the key into her front door, she was pushed from behind by a man who she had not realized was following her home. Lydia fell onto the floor when she was pushed by the man, who immediately jumped on her and began to sexually assault her. And as he did so, the man would begin punching her in the head with blows that would break her jaw and cause severe head trauma. Lydia fought back as best she could. She kicked and scratched her attacker as she fought for her life, but his size made her frantic attempts to free herself futile, and after a few horrifying minutes, she would fall unconscious. Before the man escaped the building, he doused Lydia's broken body with bleach and set the apartment on fire. Police and fire services arrived within minutes and watched as the smoke billowed from the windows around Lydia's apartment. The flames began to climb up the side of the building as they unrolled the hoses and extended the ladders. To the astonishment of the emergency workers and people who were gathered below, a window on the second floor of the burning building opened, and a woman, lacking clothing, was seen as she threw herself out of the window directly onto the pavement below. The woman was Lydia Tillman. She had barely survived the horrific attack and knew that she would likely perish in the flames.
The way he says her name, it was Lydia Tillman. Like it's a fucking twist or something. Like, I know it's like, oh my god, she's still alive. But it's not, it's, she's still alive, not, she's still alive. Jesus Christ. Sorry.
So she had thrown herself out of the window in a last effort to survive. When Lydia hit the ground, paramedics rushed to her aid, and she was immediately transported to the hospital. Tragically, Lydia suffered a stroke soon after she arrived and was placed into a medically induced coma for 5 weeks as doctors worked tirelessly to save her life.
That was her
Police
attempt to
couldn't find
survive. That would be my
Lydia's
attempt to
apartment due
fucking
the large
die.
amounts of damage around the home. But because Lydia had bravely fought off her attacker, she had
I'm
managed
on
to survive the
fire
event.
and was raped.
It's so good to see you.
On many levels,
Probably not a stranger to
the people who fix her are the ones who know her the best.
When investigators examined Lydia's body, they were able to collect DNA samples of her attacker from under her fingernails, which would be sent to the crime lab for DNA analysis. But in the meantime, investigators believed that the use of bleach in this case was similar to the circumstances in the disappearance of Kenya Monye, so police decided to restart their surveillance of Travis. In the early hours of July 10th, Travis was seen talking to a woman outside of a club for 30 minutes before the two would walk off together. Concerned for what might unfold, an officer approached Travis and began to ask him questions about his identity. Strangely, Travis gave the officer a fake name and address and appeared very nervous throughout their interaction. By this point, the woman Travis was with had walked away. And at this point, Travis had done nothing to warrant further questions, so the officer was forced to let him go. Just 20 minutes later, Travis would reappear, having changed outfits and put on a hat. And once again, he was seen approaching an intoxicated woman, and yet again, police were concerned for her well-being as the two began to walk away together. This time, officers weren't prepared to let Travis go, worrying he might have other intentions towards the woman that he was attempting to take away from the bars and clubs. So they made the decision to arrest Travis for providing a false name. It was only a misdemeanor offense, but at least it would keep the locals safe for that night. On the following day, which was July the 11th, at 10:45 p.m., just as Travis was preparing to walk free from the police station after securing bond, the DNA results from under Lydia's fingernails had come through. The DNA was a direct match for Travis Forbes. Travis was immediately arrested on suspicion of attempted murder, sexual assault, and arson against Lydia Tillman. 1 month later, Travis was interviewed in connection with Kenya's disappearance as well. But at this time, rather than deny any involvement as he had before, Travis tells police he's ready to talk, but only if they agree to 2 conditions. First, he demanded that when he gets to prison, he must not be labeled a sex offender. And second, prosecutors must not demand the death penalty in this case. Prosecutors agreed to the deal. And after 5 months from Kenya's disappearance, the truth about what happened would be finally revealed. In interviews with the investigators, Travis told them that he did indeed meet Kenya outside of the 24K lounge where she was talking to a homeless man. Travis was with a friend, and together they asked Kenya if she needed help. She said she did, so Travis and his friend tried to get her a cab to get her back to her boyfriend's apartment. But there were no cabs around, so Travis offered to drop her at home. He dropped his friend off first and then continued driving toward Kenya's apartment. By now, Kenya was passed out in the front seat, and Travis pulled over. He climbed on top of her and was attempting to sexually assault her, but as he did, Kenya woke up and began to fight him. In a panic, Travis strangled her to death in the front seat of his van. He stuffed her body into a cooler that he carried in the back of the van, and then put the cooler in the freezer at the bakery, which was seen on the CCTV footage.
I wanted to bury her either next to some water or next to some trees.
Was it?
Because that's where I would like to be buried. If somebody killed me, I would hope that they would bury me next to something nice. I just don't need some dumpster.
The next day, he drove to Keanesburg, where he buried Kenya's body under a grove of cottonwood trees along Interstate 76. He returned to the bakery where he had put everything that had come in contact with Kenya, including the carpet from his van, into a 55-gallon barrel, which he burned outside of the bakery. On the 26th of September 2011, Travis appeared in court to be formally advised of the charges he was facing. He entered a guilty plea to the charge of first-degree murder of Kenya Monye and guilty to the attempted murder of Lydia Tillman. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for Kenya's murder, and a further 48 years were added for the attempted murder of Lydia. As stories began to be told about Kenya's horrific murder and the brutal attack on Lydia, more information came to light about Travis Forbes' extensive criminal history. He had been arrested for felony burglary, criminal harassment, and assault over a number of years. One thing was clear: as Travis got older, his crimes grew both in frequency and in violence. Ex-girlfriends came forward to share the details of his concerning obsessions with sexual roleplay. At the time of Kenya's murder, Travis was on probation for a domestic violence charge. All of this left many wondering how such a violent man was able to walk free for so long. Was it his seemingly trustworthy and clean-cut appearance that gave him the ability to blend in and prey on women so easily? Lydia will forever be a changed woman after Travis's horrific attack. After months of rehabilitation and surgery, Lydia had to relearn how to speak, walk, and drive.
Go to therapy.
The speech is slowed from the stroke she suffered after jumping from his second-floor apartment to get away from him, Travis Forbes.
Coma. Yeah.
Lydia Tillman is tough. She goes to physical therapy 5 times a week.
Yeah. Better every day.
She runs twice a week.
2 miles with rapid.
Weather permitting.
Yeah.
And relies on a notebook when the words don't flow. She tells me she still only wishes peace for Forbes, but she is forever linked to the family of Kenya Monye, a young Aurora woman killed by Forbes 3 months before Lydia was attacked, and even wears one of Kenya's rings as a symbol of that bond.
Wanted me have. Yeah.
There is numbness on her right side. She can only chew soft foods.
I have a long road.
But you can bet they are temporary restrictions. Very good shape.
Yeah.
Obstacles to clear, as the bracelet on her wrist reminds everyone she meets.
Live your days in
She said live, laugh, love. I'd fucking
new.
She is hailed as a hero for her extraordinary display of strength, surviving Travis's attack, which ultimately led him to being discovered as Kenya's killer. Lydia went on to study yoga and now speaks at various events around the country where she shares her inspiring story. During an emotional memorial service, Kenya's sister offered moving words in tribute to her. "I'm not saying goodbye. I'm saying see you later. I'll see you when God calls me home with you. I don't quite understand why you had to leave us all so soon, but God always has a purpose. I'm not going to look at this as a loss. I'm going to look at this as a gain. I've gained my guardian angel, and one that I know I can trust. Rest in paradise, big sister. See you when it's my time. I love you. and you are always and definitely are missed. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like the video, comment down below with your take on it, and subscribe to the channel. Also hit the notification bell in order to stay up to date each time we reveal a new
Who would do that, something like that, to this sweet old lady? Who would do that to her? She didn't deserve it.
No, she didn't. I don't know. I don't know. She didn't deserve it. My mother was a Christian woman. She's a good woman. She did not deserve it. No. My mom is not gone. Please, God, please tell me she's not gone.
On a late summer's evening in 2015, a woman named Judy Schultz received a phone call so disturbing it would prompt her to drive straight to the home of her 79-year-old mother, Ora Leah Hawkins. There she would find the house empty and in darkness, save for the dim glow of a nightlight in her mother's living room. When her knocks went unanswered, a distressed Judy returned home. Within days, however, she would learn the real reason her mother's house had been in darkness, and just how close she had been to intercepting the horrific events that had been unfolding right there, just feet from her. Welcome to Fear Files, where we discuss and dissect the most mysterious, terrifying, and mind-bending cases from all over the world. Before we start, we would like to send our heartfelt sympathies to the loved ones of Ora Leah Hawkins, who fell victim to the abominable acts described in this case. This story takes us to the small town of St. Cloud in Osceola County, Florida, just a 30-minute drive from downtown Orlando. Situated on the southern shore of Lake Tocohaliga, St. Cloud lies surrounded by lush marshlands, waterways, and lakes. Not surprisingly, recreation in this quiet, laid-back community revolves largely around fishing.